Saṁyutta Nikāya, the Connected Discourses. Sagāthāvagga Saṁyutta. Devatā Saṁyutta. Nandana Vagga. Sutta number 1.11. Nandana Sutta. Garden of Delights. This is what I personally heard. Once, while the Blessed One was living at the monastery, donated by the householder Anathapindika in Savathi's Jadas Park, he addressed the bhikkhus in this manner, and said, Bhikkhus, yes, Bhante, the bhikkhus replied, and the Blessed One continued by saying, a long time ago, bhikkhus, there was a certain Deva, sitting along with the other 33 gods of the Tavatimsa heavenly realm, who enjoyed himself with all that his 5 senses could provide with divine pleasure, while being accompanied by a large retinue of celestial nymphs, all catering to their every sensual desire, lounging there at the Nandana garden of celestial delights. In his excitement, that Deva spoke this verse. All those who've never seen or experienced this lovely Nandana, garden of sensual delights, certainly never tasted real pleasure, nor ever known what bliss truly is. For this is where we, the 33 lords of this realm, call our very home. Now, bhikkhus, when he had just spoken these verses, another Deva, being aware of his thoughts, responded in turn with his own verses, while saying, You imbecile! Apparently you know nothing about what is spoken by the Lord Arahants, how all things that are conditioned are impermanent. They rise and fall, but must all come to an end, sooner or later. For their nature is that they arise only to cease. It's the stilling of all that madness, the ending of all those ceaseless ups and downs, that is true bliss indeed. Sutta number 1.12. Nandati Sutta. Delighting. Once, while the Blessed One was living at Anathapindika's monastery in Savathi's Jadas Park, while the night had advanced and all had retired to their kutis, a stunningly beautiful Deva appeared, brilliantly illuminating the entirety of Jadas Park, and by approaching the Blessed One paid homage, and then, standing to one side, that Deva uttered this inspired verse. One becomes delighted when he has sons and many children. Possessing a herd of oxen and cattle, too, bring him much delight. After all, having assets and things to call one's own are truly a man's delight. For without having assets or acquisitions, there can be no delighting. And the Blessed One responded by saying the following verse. One becomes burdened by sorrow when he has sons and many children. Possessing a herd of oxen and cattle bring him much worry and pain too. After all, having assets and things to call one's own are truly a man's burden of sorrow. For it is only when all assets and acquisitions are given up that there can be no more sorrow or grieving. Sutta number 1.13. Natthiputtasama Sutta. Nothing like that of having a son. Once, while the Blessed One was living in Savatthi at Anathapindika's monastery in Jadas Park, while the night had advanced and all had retired to their kutis, a stunningly beautiful Deva appeared, brilliantly illuminating the entirety of Jadas Park, and by approaching the Blessed One, paid homage, and then standing to one side, that Deva uttered this inspired verse. There truly is no affection that could be compared to the affection for a son. There's no wealth equal to having one's own cattle. No source of light could ever outshine the sun, and no body of water could be greater than the ocean that reigns supreme. And the Blessed One responded by saying the following verse. There truly is no affection that could be compared to the affection one has for oneself. There's no wealth equal to having food and grain. No source of light could ever outshine wisdom, and no body of water could be greater than the rain that reigns supreme. Sutta number 1.14, Khattiya Sutta, the Royal Warrior. Once, while the Blessed One was living at Anathapindika's monastery in Jeta's Park, while the night had advanced and all had retired to their kutis, a stunningly beautiful Deva appeared, brilliantly illuminating the entirety of Jeta's Park. And by approaching the Blessed One, paid homage, and then standing to one side, that Deva uttered this inspired verse. The chief among all bipeds is a Khattiya, the royal warrior. The foremost among all four-legged animals is the ox. The budding young maiden is the best among all wives, and the firstborn is the chief among all sons. And the Blessed One responded by saying the following verse. The chief among all bipeds is the Buddha. The foremost among all four-legged animals is the thoroughbred horse. The obedient woman is the best among all wives, and the loyal offspring among all one's children is the chief among all sons. Sutta number 1.15, Saṇamāna Sutta, Sea of Murmurs. At midday, when the sun is at its highest, as the birds and other animals have all become quiet and still, suddenly, when the entire forest turns into a sea of murmurs, all that turns out to be quite terrifying to me. At midday, when the sun is at its highest, as the birds and other animals have all become quiet and still, suddenly, when the entire forest turns into a sea of murmurs, all that turns out to be quite delightful to me. Sutta number 1.16, Niddātandī Sutta, Sleepy and Sluggish. So long as people are lenient with being sleepy and thus remain sluggish, unwilling to rouse themselves while drowning in discontent, yawning away, becoming drowsy and lax once having taken their meal, then this noble path will not be revealed, but left hidden from such beings. So long as people are not permissive with being sleepy, and thus refuse to remain sluggish, always rousing themselves, fighting against discontent with determined energy, neither yawning away nor becoming drowsy or lax once having taken their meal, then this noble path will indeed be revealed, and thus become utterly purified within the very hearts of such beings. Sutta number 1.17, Dukkara Sutta, difficult to practice. The life of a true recluse is really hard to endure. Thus, usually quite difficult for the incompetent and narcissistic person to even withstand, let alone to fully put into practice and reach its completion. Because to live such a life means to face countless encroaching obstructions, all of which would easily bog down and swallow whole such fools. How many days would you think a recluse would survive, trying to truly live the holy life, when in all reality he is unable to control his heart? For to go on like that, with each and every step along the way, he would simply get crushed under the weight of his own uncontrolled thoughts. But when a bhikkhu has genuinely lived this life, using his sense restraint as his support, much like a tortoise drawing in his limbs under his thick shell, he lives while supporting himself through his ongoing practice, closely observing every thought that passes through his mind, and by having attained to the higher understanding, knowing that he's finally quenched and completed the holy task, such a bhikkhu has no need to say anything more to anyone. Sutta number 1.18, Hirī Sutta, Wise Sense of Moral Shame. Show me where in existence I could find that one person who chooses to live with restraint, possessing wise sense of moral shame in his heart, the one who turns away from doing any and all evil, thus protecting himself from receiving blame, just like a fine thoroughbred horse does, even from just noticing the whip. Truly scarce, and very few indeed are those in existence who choose to live with restraint, possessing wise sense of moral shame in their heart, who, always living mindfully, have reached the very end of suffering. And even though they live among the evil and crooked, they nevertheless remain straight and sane. Sutta number 1.19, Kuṭikā Sutta, Tiny Little Hut. Do you not have at least a tiny little hut? Do you not have a nest to resort to? And how about those connections you've made and assets accumulated thus far in your past? Could you truly say that you've freed yourself from all that bondage, really? Actually, I don't even have a tiny little hut. And no, I also do not have a nest to resort to. As for those connections made or assets accumulated in the past, they all lie just there, abandoned and left in the past. Therefore, I truly can say that I've freed myself from all that bondage indeed. In that case, what do you think I'm referring to with the tiny little hut? And how about the nest one resorts to? What do you reckon that is a reference to? As for those connections made or assets accumulated in your past, what do you consider those to be? And what is it that you consider to be a bondage one gets shackled to, really? I declare the reference to the tiny little hut to be none other than one's own mother, whereas the nest one resorts to, that is a reference to having a wife. As for those connections made or assets accumulated in the past, those are the sons and children one prides oneself for having, linking him to the future. But throughout, I consider craving itself to be the very bondage one gets shackled to, really. Indeed, it is lovely to see how you do not even have a tiny little hut. Lovely, too, to witness how you do not even have a nest to resort to as well. As it regards to connections made or assets accumulated in your past, it's marvelous to see how they all lie just there, abandoned and left in the past. And it's beautiful also, witnessing how you've finally freed yourself from all that bondage indeed. Sutta number 1.20, Samiddhi Sutta, with Venerable Samiddhi. This is what I personally heard. Once, the Blessed One was living near Rajagha while staying at the Hot Springs Monastery. It was during that time, one early morning, that the Venerable Samiddhi went to the hot springs to bathe at the crack of dawn. Having bathed himself in the hot springs, he came out and began drying himself, standing with his single lower robe. Then, once the sun was up, a glorious female deva appeared, as she lit up the entire hot springs and began approaching the Venerable Samiddhi. Then, while being suspended in the air, she addressed him in verse. O Bhikkhu, before having even tasted or feasted, you look for alms. Once having tasted and feasted, you wouldn't go looking for alms. And if you still want to, go ahead, look for alms, but only once you have enjoyed yourself and eaten first. So do not waste your precious time, O Bhikkhu. And the Venerable Samiddhi replied, time itself is so unreliable, as it remains a complete unknown. For I do not know it, nor can predict its length. Hence, it lies unseen for me. That is why I don't waste any time, and choose to look for alms before I taste or eat. Then that deva came down as she touched the ground with her feet and said to the Venerable Samiddhi, Bhikkhu, you have gone forth while still very young. You are in the prime of your life, still possessing your black hair, blessed with youth. Nevertheless, you still haven't tasted all that sensual pleasures have to offer. So now is the time to enjoy all your humanly pleasures. Don't give up what is already in front of you right here and now. What you can already see and touch for what you cannot see, touch, or taste, and all that which is uncertain and takes such a long time to achieve. And the Venerable Samiddhi replied, Friend, I have not given up what is visible right here and now for what is uncertain or takes a long time to achieve. It is in fact just the opposite, for I have given up that which is uncertain and wastes away so much time in order to pursue that which is visible right here in this present. For the Blessed One has said that sensual pleasures waste so much of our energy and time, leading to so much suffering and anguish, as they are, in all actuality, dangerous traps that bring one certain defeat. However, this Dhamma is directly visible right here in this very life, being immediately effective, encouraging close inspection, fully accessible, which repeatedly allows all those wise enough to pursue it to know, see, and fully understand it by themselves through their own efforts. Then the Deva asked the following question. But in what way, Bhikkhu, has the Blessed One described how sensual pleasures waste so much of our energy and time, leading to so much suffering and anguish, as they are, in all actuality, dangerous traps that bring one certain defeat? Also, how is this Dhamma you speak of directly visible right here in this very life, being immediately effective, encouraging close inspection, fully accessible, which repeatedly allows all those wise enough to pursue it to know, see, and fully understand it by themselves through their own efforts? At this, the Venerable Samiddhi responded by saying, I'm only a junior monk, friend, only recently gone forth, and therefore just freshly have come to this Dhamma and discipline. I'm not qualified nor able to explain what you ask in detail. But the Blessed One, the Arahant, the fully self-awakened Buddha, is residing at this moment here, nearby in Rajagha at the Hot Springs Monastery. You should go and directly ask him about this matter. And whatever the Blessed One tells you and instructs you in his answer to your questions, you must closely remember it in detail. The Deva then retorted, But it's not easy for us to approach the Blessed One, as he is surrounded by Devas who are so powerful and glorious, whose presence makes it difficult for us to go near the great teacher. But if you go to the Blessed One instead and ask him my questions, we too can join you by coming along to listen to the Dhamma he teaches. All right then, friend, replied the Venerable Samiddhi, as he went and approached the Blessed One. And after paying his respects, he sat down to one side and reported to the great teacher on his dialogue with that Deva, and all that he had witnessed earlier that day. Then the Venerable Samiddhi added, Now, Bhante, if that Deva was serious about wanting to come along with me as I ask her questions, then she must be close by. As he was just done speaking these words, that Deva said to the Venerable Samiddhi, I am here, Bhikkhu. Ask the questions, Bhikkhu. Ask. Then the Buddha addressed the Deva directly in verse. Beings who are able to perceive what can be expressed become fixated on and stuck in whatever is expressed. By not understanding what is expressed, they all fall prey to death. But when one fully understands what is expressed, they no longer isolate nor distinguish an expressor, for there is nothing left for him to become fixated on or stuck in. Then the Blessed One asked, Spirit, if you understood what was said, go ahead and speak. And the Deva replied, Bhante, I don't understand it in full, the detailed meaning of the Blessed One's brief statement. Please, it would be wonderful if you could explain it further by teaching me the detailed meaning of this, so I could understand it better. By continuing to think in terms of, I'm equal to, I am better or special or worse than, soon you will find yourself quarreling with others, getting into arguments. But remaining unshakable in the face of these three discriminations, one does not fall into the trap of I'm equal to, I am better or special or worse than. Again, the Blessed One asked, Spirit, if you understood what was said, go ahead and speak. And again the Deva replied, Bhante, I don't understand it in full, the detailed meaning of the Blessed One's brief statement. Please, it would be wonderful if you could explain it further by teaching me the detailed meaning of this, so I could understand it better. Surmising and conclusions are given up, and conceit is defeated. Craving for name and form is, here and now, completely cut off. With all knots that bind finally severed, one remains empty of any expectations, free from all troubles. And even though devas and humans come looking for him, whether in this world or the one beyond, they can never find them, not in the heavens nor in any other realm. Again, the Blessed One asked, Spirit, if you understood what was said, go ahead and speak. And the Deva said, Bhante, I now understand the detailed meaning of the Blessed One's brief statement to be the following. In all the realms, no evil actions should be committed by anyone, whether through speech, thought, or the body. And by having given up sensual pleasures, one should remain mindful throughout, fully aware and understanding of whatever that is happening. Thus, one should leave behind all that wastes time and causes suffering. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.